Why did you wait so long? Days.
Mailbox. I live in the country. And my mailbox is on the city block. And I have a ball with
Water.
You don't have to be hungry to eat.
Duke's favorite.
My Samuel had a son named Thomas.
Really?
Yeah, there's Thomas.
Yeah, I know.
And when Thomas Gladney then married a lady named Rachel Crichton from Ireland. And they had 5 children, and one of those children was named John Gladney. And then he married Mary and Hutchinson Russell. And my Russells also had ties to Winnsboro. So I have double relations. Well, I have 2 different relationships. And
Fella, you done broke your camera. How you doing?
And I discovered last year, we didn't know guys, it's not your particular in the family, but,
first of all, I just got this, what we're going to do, the Bibles in the past had been preserved in lockable glass boxes. Now that we have the archival boxes that will keep them permanently preserved, we have no more use for the glass boxes. And so the officers have gotten together and decided that we will donate those cases to the museum. And that's what this letter does that I just signed.
Do you want a copy of it?
Please.
Yes.
Because number one, Pelham does so much for us every year to let us in here. And also they do a very good job of preserving not only our history, but the Russells and the Youngs and different families that all settled here in Fairfield County that we're all related to and linked to. So
my mouth
that,
is dropping when you say Russell, because my family is, and then I see Lyles is in this cemetery, so Lyles is Russells are on my mom's side, but.
well, now we have one of the
Well, you're
Russells.
related to my husband
Yeah.
then, because James Russell is his great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather.
My grandfather, no, my great-grandfather was James Martin Russell
Yeah,
from
he had to get
Abbeville.
some.
But his father had come from New York State, and they were Dutch, of Dutch origin, so I don't know of their connection. But then the Russells were stonecutters,
Right,
and there's a
The old
lot
church.
about that.
So that is yours.
and there's Michael Russell, right there.
And there's another Russell.
So you may be related.
Yeah, we may be. You know, we do.
The other thing, due to all the work that you do for us in this society and everything else, and for the preservation of the Bibles, a donation to the museum for $150.
That is just fabulous.
Sir, you
You
can-
know what we can do with this.
Bonnie?
Lots. This is wonderful. And
Give
send
me a-
that to me and we'll put it in the paper
Give me
too.
that.
We've known each other for many years
We
now.
have since '09, yeah,
Yeah,
first time I
so.
came here.
That's very good.
I just love this. I've been a part of a lot of reunions that come, probably all related to y'all too, the Lauderdales and the Bells, and My family came here in the 1740s, and my 5th great-grandfather was named Aromanus Lyles.
Wow.
Strange name. He was supposed to be the first white settler child born in what would become Fairfield County eventually. We don't know. I mean, how do you prove something like that? That he was the first one born? Because I'm sure there were a lot of people settled out all through the woods at that time that didn't know each other. So I have a lot of root stories and some kind of fun. His father got scalped by the Indians on the Broad
That's
River.
fun.
And we have been searching for the remains, the archaeological remains of what might have been the cabin, because we've had all kind of clues from the past, such as a trench that was dug around it to help them escape from the Indians in the future. So recently, a friend archaeologist who works for the government sent me a satellite image of the particular area we're looking at, and there's a square trench still visible from this satellite
Isn't
image.
that cool?
So
Way cool.
lots of stories, and yesterday we had a great storytelling time. We were passing great stories back and forth. Working in a museum is not something I was trained to do. It's so rewarding and so educating, and this is my maybe 15th year.
Wow.
And I was trained as an artist and worked as an illustrator for years in a starving job, and this is another starving job, but it's so rewarding, you know. It doesn't matter what you get paid for your work if you love it. I eat it up. I run into more cousins that didn't know they were cousins. Is this another cousin coming in?
Yeah.
Coming right on in. Good.
Hey, Tony, good to see you. Yes, sir.
Ken Kirkpatrick, nice to meet you.
Never seen that.
Hi guys, nice to meet you. Hi
Is
guys.
that in this cemetery?
Yes, there's his picture, just right.
You head up to preservation now.
Online.
Are you not able to open this, are you? Open the front cover.
You don't want to touch it
we don't
because
dare.
the oil's on
To
it.
show you in there, I have the plantation ledger that my great-great-grandfather kept for his son who was killed in the Civil War. And it lists all the slaves on all 3 pages with their values and their birth dates. We have a couple of other Bibles that list slaves and birth dates, and the Boyd family Bible has actually, we have found some black descendants who know that this particular name, even though they didn't have surnames at that time, was their great-great-great-grandmother, and they've got a lot of really good proof to prove it. So it's so rewarding working with these old things. Yes.
Did everybody make it?
Yeah, I think
That was
so.
coming?
Yeah. They'll probably all beat us in there.
I'm going to pay first. I'm going to pay first.
They're back up in here again. Yeah, we got to
We had sugars like crazy out here about 3 weeks ago. I mean, they just, but I put mentholatum on my legs, but that's before the grass and everything was, after the grass, we eat it, bring the cup. We got it, so it's fine. Mr. Dan here. Yes, sir. Lemonade. Lemonade. No charge, it's free. Family. You just spike it, lemonade. One of them. I'll tell you a story right quick. My Uncle Jeff, I saw him last week. My grandfather Hunter was in 1931 and he worked when he was in Scotland. And it's mellowed all these years. And Jeff wants to take it.
Oh, the front of it came off? It's over there where they're standing, because I picked up the pieces yesterday.
Okay, good. I had put one piece. Thank you. And I don't know.
It's like the front of it just cleaved off.
And you know, it's just, I guess it's cold and weather.
Yeah. It did, none of it had any writing on it though. This stuff looks like rabbit stuff, right, Tim?
Yeah. Rabbits like to eat things. Watch out, you might hit it. Which way is it? Oh, this is the area.
Joseph Gladney.
JC?
That's what I want to like, respectfully, to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. JC, that's a good one. If he's alive, it's a good thing. Yeah, oh, no shoulders. That's the one that's what some of my black friends call a snake. He said he all head and neck. He got no shoulders.
What y'all find the snake up there?
Well, I hope we don't. Yes, it is, isn't it? Oh, look, is that something in there? Is that a him? What is that? No, maybe it's not.
Well, does that match up with that again?
Well, let's see.
I wouldn't even think it. It's a rock, it's a very delicate rock.
We need to put them so they can't be seen, don't y'all?
Well, possibly so. I don't know. I don't have any idea why which one to begin with.
That one, Timmy's.
But if you
got
hide
to make
them
sure it's
there.
flat wherever you put it.
Anyway.
Make sure that one's flat.
There's no break, you step on it.
Gosh, this reminds me of clearing the hayfields.
You know, he's a no-nonsense guy.
Pick up rocks.
So you're telling me I should follow you to
Well, if you
Oh, that's what it is. Margaret. Margaret, yeah.
Well, I'm gonna be cremated.
see, I don't understand coming back.
We gotta go to Ireland, Marguerite.
Memory of. Pretty good.
Where's the word I in? Oh, it's up
In
there.
memory of. Coming out good.
Need to go
Oh,
farther
that
to your
works
left,
good.
to your right there. Bear down just a little harder. Get this A.
Oh yeah, good.
Oh, that came out real good.
Yeah.
Could you read it before?
Very
That's
impressive.
what we need to do to that other.
And your who departed is going to be here. It is 63rd.
You're good. Okay,
Now, is that
Martha.
going to smudge when you try to
Yeah,
fold
well,
it?
I have a piece of paper to
need to
prevent.
Called Queen's Closure.
There's a balcony,
Big in Williamsburg.
slave.
Should have seen that. That's all the big down there.
Attention to stuff like that back then.
Can you imagine having church in here with no AC?
Yeah.
No wonder.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that was 2012. Until 2011.
That's the last time you broke into here?
Yeah. It was hot then too, no wonder they were ready to fight.
You got everybody sign it? Yeah.
Well, I was trying to see where we.
All right, you just your mission to find out where.
I'm sure I've got it on my tree
I
somewhere.
bet you $1 all
Hello,
the
Jimmy.
same place here.
We haven't seen it, yeah.
They were wild and woolly. No, I mean, they were wonderful. They were one of my very favorite colors. So she grew up in that
All
house.
right.
Probably she grew up in the old rock house.
That'd be good.
And, yeah.
Hey, Jimmy.
She is a stone, and she grew up in the old stone house, yes.
And she married a.
Still.
Yeah, well, he's here tonight. Dean has two. Yeah, that's why in the black. And then
If you see cheese in that, I can't eat cheese.
no cheese.
I didn't come to eat. How much do I have to pay?
Nothing. You are our guest. Now that is cheese.
That's attention please, attention please. We're gonna go ahead and get started with the talking, the silent talking portion of the meeting, and then once we're done, we can have more social meet and greet time. But at this time, I'm gonna ask Kathy Newman to introduce one of our very special guests this evening.
This is a very good friend of our family. This is Buddy Stevenson. And our special guest, his father and mother and his family donated the land that the Gladney Cemetery is located on to our family. So we're very thankful for him, and we're glad he's here tonight.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
I know we've all been hanging around one another all weekend, but I'm still going to ask everyone to go around the room and introduce themselves. And if you want to tell how you're linked to the family, you're more than welcome. But we'll start with Miss Judy.
Oh gosh, Dan's the Gladney. Start with
Dan,
Dan, stand up. Stand up.
We'll do that. We'll do that. We'll do that. We'll start over here.
I just married into this man.
Wasn't it fun?
Bless her heart. Bless her heart.
But that's all right, I'm on 50 years.
I'm Dan Gladney, my wife Judy, and we're from Georgia, but we have lived in Florida, Southwest Florida for the last few years, and I'm from the Samuel line, and we have been attending this wonderful reunion and finding wonderful friends and wonderful family since 1978. We've missed a few, but not many. So we're happy to be here, and it's good to see you. And a special thanks to the Whitesell family.
I'm Terry Gladney Burkemper, my husband Eugene. We live in northern Missouri. We're on the Richard line. I am on the Richard line. My father and mother used to came at the very beginning, and my dad came by himself for years. It's always the highlight for him to come. He usually came on a Thursday so he could visit with Mr. Ed. They'd go check his tomatoes and his corn and the cows and so forth. And kind of got started coming with him, and now that he's passed away, we've kind of taken over his spot.
Yes. I'm Davis Kirkpatrick, and I was raised in South Carolina, one of the few people I think Kenny was also. But I'm on the Samuel line, and I've been coming to these reunions. It seems like 50 years or so. I was one of the first treasurers we had in the organization. And I'm also related to the Aiken family. At times there have been members of the Aiken family here, and if there is anybody tonight,
know, please let me know. I had something I wanted to say to them. I developed something on the Aiken history, so anyhow, I'm glad to be here.
Did you say that your name was Davis Aiken Kirkpatrick?
Yes.
Okay, Davis Aiken, okay, good, I'm gonna get that part in there, good. It's because of Davis that I'm here. He invited me, I guess in the 90s, and then I finally came in 98 or 99. I'm Ken Kirkpatrick, and our grandmothers were sisters. Harriet Gladney was my daddy's mother, and Frances Gladney was his mother. They were sisters, and so thankful to be here. So, I'm a South Carolinian, Tiger fan, yeah.
All right.
Go down.
Then you already know. Right ahead.
I'm Kathy Newman. This is my husband Jimmy doing the video tonight. I am from Newnan, Georgia, which is about 35 miles southwest of Atlanta, and we have not missed a year since the year 2000 attending the reunion, even the one that was canceled. And I did the Gladneygram, so if anybody has anything to print, give it to me.
My name is Tawny Adams. I'm from Franklin, Georgia, which is next door to Coweta. I've been coming since '09, and my great-great-grandmother was Mary Elizabeth Gladney from the Samuel line, and I'm president of this austere organization.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Janice Saycash. I live in Charleston. It's my husband George. I'm from the Samuel line, and we've been coming since 2002. And some of y'all who've been coming a long time remember Gloria Epps. I think she held office. And Gloria's grandmother and my grandmother were sisters. And I wish I had started coming earlier, but it's been great.
I am Melinda Kerr-Rolls, and I am from Savannah, Georgia, but actually from Mississippi. And my second great-grandmother was Nancy Matilda Gladney. And this is my husband, Rob, and I am from Thomas and from Richard.
First time? First time?
Don't ask questions.
First time here.
So, yeah.
First time to be in
Tim Johnson, and this is my son Tim. We live in Stanford, Kentucky, and with the Samuel line.
Good.
He's the database manager. He wants your birthdays, your death dates.
Yeah.
He wants your blood type. He wants.
And he's a new grandpa.
Oh, congratulations.
Congratulations.
I'm Dan Panel. I'm from the Samuel line. This is, I think, my third or my fifth time up. I lose track. I think it's my third time, really. The second time in Winnsboro. My great-grandmother was Marietta Gladney. She married Elias Washington Panel. They had 14 kids. My grandfather was Oscar, one of those 14. And so I've been doing my research on the panel line for so many years, and I think the first time was about 3 or 4 years ago when I found, okay, there's a land grant in Winnsboro, South Carolina for William Panel. And so I looked at the map on the land grants, I said, there's Gladney's there too. So I think that's where I started the connection. So our panel and Gladney lines have been linked for 250 years now. So I'm kind of proud of that fact. And I'm from Fort Worth, Texas.
Texas, all right. Good.
Go on.
Introduce everybody.
You do it.
You're the spokesperson.
Well, Hal.
Hey, I'm Hal Gladney, John Harvey. My mother, Lucille. I've been coming, she's been coming many more years than me, but I know we started coming back in the 70s. Okay?
Introduce everyone.
Thomas family.
I'm Judy House, younger sister. And this is my husband, Jim
Jimmy and Jamie are our oldest children. That's their happy birthday weekend. The convention falls every year, reunion on their birthday, it seems like. They're only 37, is that kind of young? And Jamie was just married last November to Jim, so it's another Jim in our family. And he has 2 wonderful children that aren't with us this weekend, Isabel and Ethan. And this is our baby, Jenna. Her significant other, fiance, next wedding is Dan. And she's 27. I was trying to subtract backwards, it didn't work. But one of my favorite people of the family is my daughter-in-law, Julie, because she helped with Jimmy to provide us the 2 most precious grandbabies, Shyla and Baxter.
And we are here in Columbia.
And we came, the house that the first one, I think was in, I'm not sure, but it was at your dad's house. I remember us out in the back having steaks grilled out and a huge group of people. And then we missed a lot, and then we started coming back again. So glad you are all here this weekend.
Thank you, Judy.
Kirk? I didn't know which end of the table was gonna go next. I'm Ken Kirkpatrick II. You met my father already. I attended my first one of these back in 2011, I believe it was. It's been a few years. When I came last time, I had my little boy with me. He's thriving, beautiful, happy. My father mentioned my connections to the past through the Gladneys. He's a connection to the future. He's actually half Scots-Irish and half Turkish. His mother's from Turkey. So he's big and beautiful, and hopefully I'll have him with me in coming years. But it's great to be here and see a lot of familiar faces and some I haven't seen. So I look forward to keeping on coming back. And,
Samuel.
Yeah, Samuel. I was just found out today, Samuel.
I'm Michael Russell, and I'm from the Samuel line, and my relatives was James Russell. We got to go to his resting place today, which was amazing. I'd seen lots of pictures of it, but it's the first time I actually got to go there. I appreciate that for y'all. I felt like that was nice. My wife Marguerite's with me. We live in Washington, D.C., and we also have a home in Rhode Island, and that's about it. We're glad to be here. This is really my first one here. I was at a reunion that was at the Dudley home in Kilgore, Texas years ago, and I remember some of the people that are here, but that was a long time ago.
First time up.
First time.
Yeah.
I'm Wally Gladney and my wife Dean. We're from Lexington, Kentucky. We've lived there 50 years, and I'm originally from Randolph County, Alabama. And we came first in 1976. I think that was the year that I thought you were here. I'm not sure.
I think we were.
That was the year we had it down at
Presbyterian Church.
Yeah.
well, no,
Was it Lebanon?
might have been set with Lamplighter.
Yeah.
And we had an 88th birthday party for Mrs. Arnold, who wrote the Red Gladney book. And we haven't been every year, but because we've raised 3 daughters. We have 6 grandkids, 3 son-in-laws, and we just celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
Let me point out, Wally has been very instrumental in this family gathering, and he is also the historian of the Gladney Association. So between he and Tim Johnson, they can tell you anything you want to know. So a lot of information between those two.
Tony, one more oversight. Today is cousin Davis's birthday. Can you imagine? He's just on the other side of 50, I understand. Congratulations. This is what he wanted to do with his birthday today. That's wonderful. Super.
75.
Wow.
That is a surprise.
I want to add something too. Dan and his wife Judy have also been very helpful with the family gathering.
Yes.
And we appreciate your years of service to us. Love you both.
We love it.
Okay, I would be, I think the next thing that we need to mention is that there is someone here who is not here. And
Absolutely.
Wally Gladney, Big Wally, dedicated years and many minutes and hours to preservation of our history, the keeping of the books. He served as president for several years and hosted reunions. Yeah, don't start that. That'll get everybody crying. But Wally loved this reunion, and he came if he was able. And I think we all just need to give Wally a hand. If
Absolutely.
He's not here. I first met Wally in 2009, whenever my first reunion here, and he was just one of those people that you met him, you had a friend. He was just one of those kind of folks. I'll go ahead and tell you what we discussed today in the officers meeting. We had it earlier today. Of course, part of the mission of the family, in case you're not aware of it, not only do we preserve the cemetery and keep it cut, but another thing that we try to do is preserve the family history, and that was the impetus behind the restoration of the Bibles, because the Bibles were beginning to deteriorate because of the acid in the paper. And so that was what part of your dues go to. Your dues go to preserve the cemetery, and they also go to preserve our family legacy and history. And to that end, we have decided to raise yearly dues from $10 to $15. As far as I know, they had never been always been $10. So there are now 15. And we're also going to ask that if you're receiving a Gladneygram, that you please pay your dues. And that's just something that we discussed at the meeting. We will, let me introduce the officers in case you're not sure of who's who. I'm the president. The vice president is Judy Weitzel. The secretary is Dan Gladney. The treasurer is Terry Berkemper. And then in addition to the 4 officers, we also have 3 directors, and those directors are Tim Johnson, Janice Sakash, and Dan Powell. Those are your officers of the Gladney Association.
Kathy does a lot also. Come on. Kathy. That's our newsletter.
Kathy is an officer. She's the editor of the Gladneygram. What am I thinking?
She does wonderful job.
Yeah, she does great. There's a lot more to printing the Gladneygram and getting it ready than you might think, because she has to beg me for an article, and she has to beg for other folks for articles. So if you have anything that you want to put in the Gladneygram, heirloom birth announcements, heirloom recipes.
Would you accept poetry?
Yes.
Oh, Scots Irish poetry. Okay. Good.
Yeah, anything like that.
Excellent.
I think I printed one for me one day.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah. Recently.
That would be great.
I'm sure it's Daddy's fault.
Okay.
Fantastic.
One other timing issue tomorrow, when we have our Sunday morning gathering, we're going to do that at 8 o'clock, and we're probably going to do it out here at the pool, and that's where we have a short devotional, traveling mercies for everyone, and kind of a so long farewell. We'll see you next year. And speaking of next year, Wally and Tim have graciously, Wally and Dean and Tim. Well, he's gonna help. Anyway, have graciously accepted. Tim's gonna help. He's already said, "Will you help?" He said yes. Anyway, the 2016 reunion, mark your calendars, will be July 29, 30, and 31 in Lexington, Kentucky.
Whoa, that'd be fun.
There is already a rumor that we might do a thoroughbred farm tour, so keep that in your possibilities. We're not too rare. Horse, thoroughbred horse farm. What did I say?
Just thoroughbred farm.
Oh, okay.
Thoroughbred farm. Yeah,
we got it.
Horse farm. And did I not cover anything? I think I got everything that I need to cover. Okay. This was a talk I gave to my historical society in Franklin. James Russell, who is the many of our ancestor, but it's Michael's ancestor, my ancestor, Kathy's ancestor, and there are several others in here that are from that line of the Russells and the Gladneys that intermarried. When he arrived in the United States, in South Carolina in 1771, they had already had some problems up in the upcountry of South Carolina, and so he joined the movement. It was called the Regulator Movement, and what they did is they basically maintained law and order in the upcountry. And this that I'm going to read you, I'd rather read it to you than talk, because I can jibber jabber and run amok. So I'm going to read this. But it's about the regulators of South Carolina in the 1760s. Okay. Charlestown, later Charleston, settled in 1670. From the outset, the citizens were beset with problems. As they expanded their territory, they did so at the expense of the local Indian population. Settlers consistently ventured inland on hunting raids, and farmers also established the rice plantations farther inland. But tensions reached a fever pitch in 1715, leading to what became known as the Yamasee War, and this involved several Indian tribes who shifted their allegiance as circumstances warranted. In other words, one group might support the British one time, and one other group might support the French, and another group might, depending on who got cheated and who got told the right thing, they would support one side or the other. It was an alliance between the coastal settlers and the northern branch of the Cherokee against the Indian coalition that finally stemmed the tide. At times, the existence of the colony was threatened. There was a time when there was talk that the colony might even be disbanded because of the war that was going on. This led the colony to encourage settlement inland to serve as a buffer between the Indians and the coastal population. The Indians, I just totally lost my give me a second. Y'all pardon me. Chair, technology can be on the coast. This bounty could be used to buy tools and provisions to begin life on the frontier. And many families took advantage of this offer. Some came from Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, having been driven out by fighting associated with the French and Indian War. And others came from Ireland and other areas of Europe. And 8 townships were founded along the rivers inland from Charleston. And this is before even the Bounty Act of 1761, which we'll get to shortly. Spurred by fighting elsewhere in the colonies associated with that French and Indian War, the Cherokee rose up and fought British colonists. The conflict lasted from about 1758 to 1761, when the Cherokee once again ceded land to the colony. And these were known as the Cherokee Wars, and they were particularly violent in 1760 and 61 before the treaty was finally signed. South Carolina decided that the amount of settlement was not sufficient to protect the coast from extended push from the Indians. In response, the Assembly passed the General Duty Act, which was also known as the Bounty Act of 1761. And this added the incentive of paying £4 sterling toward passage across the Atlantic Ocean. And hundreds of families took advantage of this opportunity to settle in the new land. There were no courts to handle law and order in the upcountry, and this is where this is leading. All courts of law, other than justices of peace, were based in Charleston and other cities along the coast, and this resulted in a general lack of law and order among the settlers inland. In other words, they had no law and order up in the inland area. Any cases that were brought for criminal activity were taken to the coast. And today I was reading in a book called The South Carolina Regulators. There was one year where they had 6 cases of crimes that happened on the inland area that went to Charleston. And even though they got guilty verdicts, the governor of the colony pardoned 5 of those cases because he wanted to be a compassionate governor. So bands of outlaws, thieves, and renegades conducted raids on farms and towns, looting and burning farms and homes. So a group of farmers and other townsfolk banded together throughout South Carolina to put an end to the violence. They came to be known as the Regulators. And some of their activities bordered on illegal because they punished those who they believed to be responsible for the crimes without due process. This resulted in some innocent people being beaten, or worse. There was branding, there was whippings. The Regulators threatened to march on Charleston. This led the colonial government to negotiate with the Regulators. In 1768, a law was passed establishing judicial circuits throughout the entire territory of South Carolina. And this helped to stem the tide of violence, but skirmishes persisted until 1771. And the Regulators then committed atrocities of their own. In an effort to heal the wounds from the conflict, the governor of the colony issued a pardon to some of those who participated in the Regulator movement. And that was done on October 31st, 1771. Among those who accepted that pardon was James Russell, who was a latecomer to the movement. He arrived in Charleston on the Hopewell, the ship was named the Hopewell, in January of 1771. He was a skilled stonemason from the village of Craigie Warren, and it was now Northern Ireland. He received 300 acres of land along Jackson Creek in Fairfield County, near what is now Winnsboro. He helped build the Jackson Creek Presbyterian Church, the ruins of which still stand. And he would go on to participate in the Revolution. He was also a Revolutionary soldier. And live out his life in the land he received. And he died in 1805 and was buried beside the Jackson Creek Church that he helped build. His son, Thomas Russell, married Mary McDowell, another immigrant from Northern Ireland. And they became associated with another family who had come to South Carolina from Northern Ireland. The Gladney family had lived in Ballymena, which by sheer coincidence was only a few miles from Craigie Warren. This is a question I posed in the presentation. Is it possible that 2 families were already acquainted with one another for many years back? We don't know. The Gladneys had left Northern Ireland in 1767 and arrived in January of 68. And Jane Gladney, a widow, came to South Carolina with her 4 sons to begin a new life in America. 2 children of Thomas Gladney, a grandson of Jane Gladney, Mary Ann Gladney and John Gladney, married 2 children of Thomas Russell, and they were Forgus Russell and Mary Ann Hutchinson Russell. These families moved together to Henry County, Georgia, where Thomas became a farmer, and Forgus Russell eventually moved to Texas. And John Gladney moved on to Carroll County, Georgia, and from there came all the families that have settled in that area in the past. And if y'all have any questions about the regular movement that I can answer, I'll be more than happy. But that concludes.
I wanted to know if there were any really good films. It sounds like a great script for an action film. Well, are there any films that you know that were made about the Regulators?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
But all of this, there's a book called The South Carolina Regulators. It's out of print. But you can buy them. Every once in a while you'll see Barnes & Noble have a copy. And that book actually mentions James Russell in it. It's not by, it only lists him as one of the people who accepted a pardon, and also lists him as among the Regulators as far as of the landowners. It doesn't say James Russell did such and such, but he is mentioned in the book.
While we're talking about books, I just wanted to share this real quick with everybody. There is a book you can buy, and being that you're from Franklin, you're familiar with the Scottish Museum there. But if you ever see a book called The Tales of William Wallace, it's a really, really good book. It was the Scottish Church used to train people with disabilities and a skill. And so they trained this blind man to be an orator, and he would go from town to town and spread the news of William Wallace's activities when he was just kind of in the brawl with the English state. But noted in the book are William Wallace's cousins, the Kirkpatricks and the Crosbys. And so for anybody interested in that line, that lineage, if you read these actual stories translated, you see a lot of family ties, as it were, going back to even the days of Braveheart forward. So it's a great book.
This is Franklin, North Carolina, Scotch
Yeah.
Irishman. He's from Franklin, Georgia. That's good.
Okay, yeah, there's a Scots-Irish Heritage Museum in Franklin, North Carolina. It's the only one approved by the Edinburgh House of Tartans in all of North America. And so it's really impressive.
I will read you something else that I found, and I just realized, I remembered I had this, I wasn't able to put that in the presentation. This is an actual skirmish that happened. It was called Mars Bluff, that's where it happened. 1768, August 15th, reported an incident near Mars Bluff on the Petey River. An armed company of regulators, headed by one Gideon Gibson on the 25th Pass near Mars Bluff, surrounded a constable and 12 men who were sent to bring one of the villains before a magistrate. And after a short skirmish, where 2 of the constable's party were mortally wounded, and one shot through the shoulder, took the rest prisoners, whom he discharged, in ordering them 50 lashes each. If we are to credit the depositions of George Thompson, William Loving, James White, Stephen Sebastian, Godfrey Kerfoy, John Holloway, Reuben White, and William White, misrepresented in the paper of the 15th of August, unless by the omission of some aggravating circumstances. And that came from the newspaper, the South Carolina Gazette. And, okay, here's the petition here. And this is a petition of a William White, who is involved in this action. A petition of William White was presented to the House and read in the words following, that on the 24th day of July, 1768, your petitioner was summoned by George Thompson, sergeant of the company of militia, to which your petitioner belongs, to assist him, who was also a constable, in serving a warrant of Robert Weaver, Esquire, for leaving Joseph Holland, lieutenant of the said company of militia, who was taken and forcibly confined by a number of disorderly people. That he, being ready and desirous to show his affection for the laws and liberties in this county, did meet at the place appointed by the said sergeant, and did on the next day march under his command towards the house where Mr. Holland was confined, near which they were met by a great number of people of different colors, whites, blacks, and mulattoes, who formed 2 lines, into which, as soon as the constable and 4 men had entered, the riders immediately surrounded and knocked them down. That when this was done, one of the chief of the riders, Gideon Gibson, called, "Shoot down, Billy White, for I have got Reuben, and if you kill Billy, we will manage the rest easy enough." Your petitioner, finding several armed men surrounding him, drew his cutlass, desired them to keep off, and endeavored to defend himself. But was soon knocked down. That by his father's help, he got up and tried to get his father away, but in a very little time, the latter being again knocked down, this being the father, he turned to his assistance, when several guns were discharged at your petitioner, a ball from one of which passed through the skin of his hip, and a second entered the bone of his right arm, about 5 inches above the elbow, and going along the said bone, came out a little below his elbow, totally shattered and destroyed the bone of his said arm. That your petitioner, finding himself thus disabled, either to help his father or himself, endeavored to make his escape, but after running a little away, fainted and fell. After some time recovering, he found several of the riders about him, one of which said, "Shoot him through the head at once." But another replied, "No, damn him, he can't live long, let him feel himself die." That they carried him into the house and threw him on the floor, where he lay weltering in his own blood. When, after having whipped his brother and others of the party whom they had taken, they permitted your petitioner's brother to take him away, that your petitioner by this melancholy accident hath not only lost the use of his right arm, but finds his constitution greatly weakened and impaired by the great quantity of blood which he lost. That your petitioner is by trade a cooper, and did usually earn 30 shillings a day by working at the trade, by which he was enabled to support his large family consisting of his wife and 8 young children, besides 3 poor orphans, relatives of his wife, who have not any other persons to take care of them. But that by loss of his arm he is not only totally disabled from working his trade, but also in a very great measure to do anything in the planning business. Your petitioner therefore humbly prays your honors to take his melancholy case into consideration, and to grant him the annuity allowed by the Militia Act to such as are maimed and disabled in the public service, or to relieve him in such other manner as your honors' great wisdom shall see fit. So that was a petition of someone who was involved in one of these skirmishes. The regulators were the ones that they were actually going after, so the regulators were the ones that shot him. So that was some of the similar things that happened back in the day, and it was a very different time and a violent time. But the regulators believed that they were the ones who were holding law and order because there was no law and order in that time. Go ahead.
It sounds like that the Wild South spilled over to the Wild West later on.
It's exactly what
That was
happened.
the beginning of it, like something.
There is a researcher that on the Russell side that's been going back and forth to everyone and looking at the records there, and Michael probably could tell you more about it, but trying to establish that connection between the Russells and the Gladneys in Ireland. So he's written a whole bunch of stuff on it, you know, from the Russell end of it, but that, you know, you had suggested that they might have known each other there. There was a lot of travel between, in the early days, between the villages. So I don't know his name, but I know when we were doing the research, and when Michael was going to.
I think his name was Ford. I think that was the
What?
guy Ford that was going back and forth.
Yeah, he made several trips, so it's someone you might want to get in touch with.
That would be really neat if we could
Because
find
that
out.
would really flesh out the connection.
Yeah, what are the chances that someone that lived that close together in our Northern Ireland would get land that close together here?
Exactly.
Because the, James Russell got his land on Jackson's Creek, and the Gladneys had been here for 3 years. What are the chances?
A question. You know, today there's about 20 of us that went out to the various spots, Gladney Cemetery and 3 or 4 other. The one you touched on there, wasn't that the old stone house that's 2-story we went to today? I had some information here that in a Gladney ground back in 2013 that Kathy had sent out, that the old stone house is a significant and a rare example of the 18th century stone construction. That's the big structure we saw today. And it was Samuel Gladney, who was from 1740 to 1800. He received a royal land grant on the date you mentioned a while ago, 1768, of which he constructed the old stone house. And the corner of the house bears a date of 1784. And the house passed through several owners before it was purchased in 1870 by the Lebanon Presbyterian Church for the use as a parsonage. And so since it's still standing, and several of us went over there and you've seen it, I just thought that might be of interest. That the house is a 2-story, side gabled roof, stone building with a double pile floor plan and an end chimneys of stone, and the front porch foundation and stone piers remain, although the porch roof and supports have been removed. My question is this. I think you said that Russell built that old church up there as a stonemason. Did the Russells also build this?
I've always wondered that. With it having been built in 1784, I've always wondered if James Russell had a hand in building that house also. Possible.
Well, they've recovered the roof of this old house back in 1984. Somebody did, that owned it. Now, I don't know, who owns it now?
I don't know. You'd have to go to the tax records and find out. I don't know who owns it.
So Kathy, didn't you say today that Samuel actually built that house?
That's what it said in there.
That's what that information states.
That's correct.
But there are so many.
1768.
Yeah.
He would have had to have help.
There are so many Samuel Gladneys too. It might not necessarily have been the land grant Samuel Gladney. It might have been another Samuel that's part of the family.
It is in the Register of Historical Societies.
Yes. It'd be nice if someone could make that into a livable house again. It's-
We hope everybody keep in mind and come to Lexington. We will try to plan it, with Tim's help, to maybe be at a Holiday Inn Express. We have some of them there. If we do, and it's right downtown, it's 3 or 4 blocks from Rupp Arena where we play basketball with 24,000 people all the time. It's across from the University of Kentucky entrance. And they do have free thoroughbred horse tours as long as we are on a bus. And you can't do it with a car caravan because of the, most of those horses are 20, 30, and $40 million a piece. And so they're very, very conscious of security. But there's a number of them through the Chamber of Commerce that do have regular free tours. And so we'll try to plan that on a Saturday. And I think it's a half-day tour type of thing. And then we'd love to get Judy crew up there and cater it. But we have food up there too, other than Kentucky Fried Chicken. And so we'll work something out. And I would say that the hotel will probably be, if we can get what we want, like a Holiday Inn Express, it'll probably be in a similar price range as it is here. Might be slightly higher, I doubt it. And if we could plan it, we might not can do it on a Saturday, a tour. We may have to do the tour on a Friday, kind of like just planning something here. So we'll find out and check your fall and winter Gladney ground and watch for it. And I wanted to mention that anybody that hasn't been getting a Gladney ground wants to, and you don't think Kathy has your email address, make sure she gets a correct email address by somebody that's around your household or kids or whoever, because it's much easier for her to do that than to mail them.
And that goes for anyone that you are related to that normally has been getting their Gladney grant, but for whatever reason is no longer getting it. It could be, as Wally said, a bad email address, or if you're getting it by mail, it could be a bad address. So make sure that if you have someone who's not getting their Gladney grant, make sure that you give them Kathy's contact info and we can get that fixed.
Well, I know if you have a lot of Gladneys in that area.
Well, one reason we thought we'd try to do this, we have one Gladney in Lexington, Maine. We have 14 people in our family who can't get to come. They're too young. They don't think they have the time. We might can get most of them. There's 2 or 3 of them that live in Houston, Texas, and they probably won't. And then there's one lady, Mitchell, Sydney Mitchell's daughter, lives in Georgetown. Her husband died not too long ago, and she has, I've corresponded with her a little. She would probably come. She's a historical buff. And then the main thing, there's a family of Gladneys. They seem to all have boys there in Louisville, Kentucky, 70 or 80 miles away. They're the Gladneys out of Chattanooga that went up there many years ago. I talked to them, tried to get them to come, and it's just too far away. They always have this health problem or that. But maybe we can get them involved and get them to come to Lexington. Other than that, Tim's family, we have in the phone book, after 50 years, another Gladney that's shown up. I can't get her to answer a phone to find out if she sounds like a Caucasian or not, but her name sounds a different nationality. So I don't know who that is. But we also have a bunch of families in Lexington, always been there, and I don't know if they're still there, called GLADDEN.
Gladney.
I've always wondered if that's part of us, somewhere.
How do you spell it?
It's
G-L-A-D-D-E-N?
Caucasian.
It's Gladden like the baseball player was.
Gladden, right.
Yeah, my mother's, my grandmother Hunter was a Gladden from Great Falls, South Carolina, before she became a Hunter. So Gladden is on my side, through my mother.
Well, this person's family, he's gone now, but I think he was a doctor at the university.
He was a professor.
And
His wife was a teacher.
yeah, you took her place teaching at one of the high schools, a math teacher. But we don't know whether they are the same or not, but we don't know them personally anyway. So that's kind of the only Gladneys that we know about up there. But we have a lot of very prominent horses.
I did well.
But the Triple Crown winner this year was trained in Citra,
So,
wasn't he? Right down the road from our
put a plug in there for that to try to get everybody to come. We'd like to have a target. Nobody will back this up at the board meeting, but of 100 people. The last time I planned a reunion was in 1991 and 1990 in Fort Worth, Texas, and we had 125 there.
Yeah.
Because we toured the Edna Gladney home.
Right.
And
Speaking of movies,
there's a good movie, Edna Gladney. It's on the Turner Channel. It's called Blossoms in the Dust. Nobody's seen it. We have a copy of it at home. We used to show it. We might even figure that out to show it at one evening next year.
And she was also married to a Sam Gladney.
yeah, she.
They had,
Yeah.
what, Gladiola Flower.
Yes, that's correct, 1930s, yes. And we toured that home when we were there in 90 and 91. In Fort Worth, they moved the campus now. It's a medical campus, and they've moved it. I haven't seen it the way it is now. But if you look online, you'll see, when you say Gladney, that's the first thing that comes up, I think. If you just put Gladney, it's Edna Gladney, because they have golf matches to raise funds for that adoption agency all over the country, New York included. So anyway, it's an interesting thing there. I'd like to one day have another reunion in Texas. Who's from Texas?
Michael's been going to
Michael,
the
maybe.
Texas reunions for
I don't know
years.
much about
They're
Fort
quite
Worth.
large.
Yes.
They're large. The problem with Texas is that everything's spread out, so it's dry from side to side.
Oh, I did mention,
It's crazy.
I forgot to mention, put this in your calendar memory, 2018, Charleston. It will be the 250th anniversary of Samuel Gladney coming over on the boat. So that's why we're going to do the 2018 reunion in Charleston. So it'll be Lexington 2016, back here in 17, and then Charleston in 18. Miss Janice has got 3 years to get ready. But Charleston in 2018, so that'll be a big one. We really want to push that one. That'll be a good one. Because Charleston's a great city. Not that Lexington's not a good city.
Right, Charleston.
I have something too.
Kathy's got something.
We want to honor our veterans, so I would like for all of the veterans and active military personnel, please stand up.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your service.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The lady there, what is her name?
Helen Lyons.
Pelham,
Lyles.
Pelham, okay. Anyway, she said that, I asked about the McQuarrie house, and, that's he built the house, and I think his daughter either married Samuel or Samuel.
Well, it's not certain which McCright built it. The Colonel William McCright was either a brother or a cousin of Agnes. It was not. It would not have been her father. I don't think it could have been, but they're not. There's a. The name William is so common in the McCright family that it's hard to pin down who's who in the family. But I know what you're talking about.
What she says is the house was given to the town of Winnsboro, and that when the town of Winnsboro does not have the resources to keep it up, it needs some repair and maintenance now, and that they would, the town would be, in her opinion, would be happy to give it to our society or any other society who would like to keep it, preserve it as a family.
Is that the McCray house down on, what's the name of it, Bonador?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's on the
Serious?
way.
How about that?
She mentioned that today, and I think she said that it could be a joint, that she had another family that would go in with, and it could be a joint situation.
There's a man that's named, I think his last name is either Poole or Pooler, and he did a book, well, not a book, I've got it on my computer, it's called These Are the McCrights, and it actually mentions some Gladneys in that book. But anyway, he and another gentleman who is a McCright by name are thinking about trying to get a pool of people together to see if they can either create a nonprofit or perhaps just try to do something to keep the house maintained. But that's what Pelham, and since you mentioned Pelham, I didn't even mention Pelham, even though she's not here. We invited her because she couldn't come. She had some other engagements tonight. But I think we need to give Pelham a hand because of the work that she does, preserving the Bibles and helping us out with the reunion every year. Her hours have been cut, and that's one reason why we had to change the time of when we could meet. She's normally not even open on Saturday, but she always likes to see us. So she opened the museum for 2 hours today for us as a special engagement. So
I'd like to mention that when we were there today, our Gladney's, you gave her a check for
yes,
$150.
we gave a donation to the museum today for $150.
Also, along that line, since her name is Lyles, I wanted to bring up last year after the reunion, Dean and I found a Gladney cemetery in Randolph County, Alabama, which is called Wedowee, on a lake that's there. And I have the map out in the car where it's located, and I have off the internet called Find a Grave, a list of the graves in that cemetery, and it's unkept, never been kept in 100 years. It's called the Lyles Gladney Young Cemetery. There's some 42 or 45 graves in it. There are William Gladney, which was buried there in 1859. He had fought in the War of 1812, and there's a couple of, well, there's 10 Gladneys in there. Another one that fought in the Civil War, and they're recognized by VA markers. And then there's Dr. Lyles. Now, Pelham said that she was sure that that was one of her ancestors. She's going to research and find it. So it was very revealing to her to find out where this Dr. Lyles and his wife and children are buried during the years of 1859 to 19, and Dr. Lyles was buried there in 1915. The place looks like it's never been cleaned since 1950. That's my great-great-great-grandfather. And John Gladney, our first president, who's not here this year, and Marilyn, his wife, that's also his great-great-great-grandfather. And that is also Larry Ivins. So 3 people that have been president of this organization. It's their 3rd great-grandfather buried there. So we're not allowed, our South Carolina Corporation, Cemetery Corporation, to do things out of the state, more or less. But we're going to try to contribute and get the place cleaned up if we can in another year or 2. John has agreed, Larry has agreed, and I have agreed. And I think there's one other major one. But many of you may have relatives buried in that cemetery. I have a list of that's in there, and I could easily email it to anybody that wants that list.
Well, you can send it to me, I'll put it in the
Okay, I'll do that. And so anyway, I just want to mention that because it's on right beside a paved highway, very easy to go to. Once you know where to go, there's a marker across the road of a mile marker, and it possibly could be developed, and they could possibly just pave it over. There's just rocks for markers, other than these VA markers. I counted over 100 pine trees in that 3/4 acre graveyard, anywhere from gallon size down. There's poison ivy, there's kudzu coming through it, and it's pathetic.
You might also mention, Wally, the fact that they need a contact for that cemetery.
They
That's
do.
one reason why we're kind of...
The courthouse wants a contact with the state of Alabama, and I think the state of South Carolina had a law passed 2 years ago that said all private, family, church, so forth cemeteries had to be checked and designated and excluded from the tax rolls. So this one has been excluded. I have a plot that they gave me at the courthouse. It is not taxable. They are not required to send anything out to anybody or make anybody pay anything. They just want a name so that if somebody come to them and said, I want to bury my relative here, that you could reject it. Or if somebody come and wanted a permit to pave the thing over, that they could come and say no. And that's the type of thing that they want, a name contact.
Are you
So
the contact for that?
I will get back and possibly give all 3 of, with Larry's permission, John's permission. I live further away than either one of them. I think John lives in Winder, Georgia. Larry teaches school in Atlanta and lives in Knoxville. So they want a contact. We're not allowed to do that with our association here because we're a South Carolina corporation. And so we're not necessarily, unless it's your relatives or your ancestors asking for any money, we're not going to take any money out of the overall treasury, but we hope to, between the ones that's our ancestors, chip in and get it cleaned up.
We're hoping to get a scout troop to do it.
That's correct. An Eagle Scout type project.
Where is it located?
Wedowee, Alabama. It's about 12 miles out of the city. Wedowee is the county seat of Randolph County. I finished high school in that town. I didn't know.
The cases that the Bibles used to be in, the glass and wood cases, we no longer have a use for those, and so those were given to the museum for their use because they can always use more display cases. Same because we had no use for them anymore because the Bibles are now in acid-free archival boxes. The other thing that I'd like to mention is a big, big thank you again, as we do every year, to King Kirkpatrick for keeping the cemetery clean, and we gave him a raise this year.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Awesome.
I appreciate
And his son.
All the slave labor that's involved in it.
that.
No, it's always a pleasure.
All right, Colombo has one more thing.
One more thing.
Let's give Judy a hand.
Yeah.
Judy and others. But thank you. It was excellent, as usual.
Tom, you know, you're talking about on the Bible cases. Those were also digitized. Did you say also that is going to be on the website, their website?
University of South Carolina.
I'm sorry? University of South Carolina. University of South Carolina.
Yeah, all of the pages that had any writing, any family-oriented writing on them were digitized so that we no longer have to touch the pages at all, because Pelham made the point that if you touch the Bibles with gloves, you're going to tear pages when you move pages. So that's why we didn't even bother. The only thing we did was we opened the box to show you that they're still there. Where we're to the point now that really we don't have a need to open the books themselves. Just the fact that they're there and they're being preserved, and we know that.
Are those 248 years old?
The Richard Bible is 17-something. 1775. The other Bible is not nearly that old. It's 1857. So it's only 148.
The CDs contain all the pages that had writing on them and also the pictures and the front and back.
If you want a CD, we can burn those.
And you can digitize it very easily.
They have it.
Yeah, Dan Panel is going to burn it for you.
Yeah, if you need them, I guess if somebody wants one, let us know.
Anybody else got something now? I think about. Again, and I hope to see everyone again next year in Lexington. I think we're going to have a really good time in Lexington. I'm sure someone has a nice poetic verse or prayer.
I have something, but I have to find it. I found it this morning on Facebook. My upper room there. It's not there now. Of course not. But it said, family is like a tree. The branches move, but the roots all stay the same. The roots never change.
We're glad to see Rob and Linda this year. Glad they got to come the first time.
We are
had
glad
not
we
seen.
got to go.
We hope to see y'all in Lexington. And then Michael and Marguerite came. I had not met them before, so it was a good reunion. Always good to have new people to come in and get involved. I appreciate that a lot. Would someone like to say a prayer, and then we'll kind of mosey on? I don't have a.
I think the guy with the tie up. He looks like a preacher.
There's your Bible if you want to read it. Look.
When I was in Corral at Tech, there was a composer named Conrad Souza. I'm sure he's still alive. But there was something that he wrote, and the Georgia Tech Chorale commissioned it. And it was music set to a passage in Numbers. We called it benedictions, what he called it. But it comes from Numbers. Now may the Lord bless you and keep you, and shine upon you the light of his countenance, and be gracious unto you, and lift up to you his face, and give you peace. Shalom. much longer than that, but that's the verse it comes from in the Bible. And it's in Numbers, and I don't know the exact verse and chapter. That's pretty much a quote of the verse. But that's with that I leave you and hope that everyone has a safe trip home, and see you in Lexington.
Let's go and join together in the Lord's Prayer, okay? Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Good being with all of you.
Strength and good health to everybody. Yes. Safe travels.